Alright, gang. So we're back for stream number 3 featuring Joker, the 80th anniversary issue. Yeah, it's been an interesting experiment today, kind of spreading out these streams. I did this because, in no small part, I still got a lot of books left over. Like, this will probably be a bit of a thing going forward. I think it might be a fun way of doing it, and people can kind of check in and out according to the issues they like. Um, and I've picked up basically the other two 80th anniversary issues that I haven't reviewed yet. Robin 80th anniversary and Joker 80th anniversary. I was actually a bit lucky to get a hold of this one. A comic book store was lucky enough to get that for me because it's been out for a while, as has the Joker. But after reading the Green Lantern 80th anniversary and also the Catwoman one, which we've reviewed on the stream so far, I found that these 80th books aren't really what I expected. They're all 100 pages long. They're all full of stories from big names in the world of comics and that sort of thing. And on the whole, they're cool books I quite enjoyed. So, given that, I was interested to see what they could do with the Joker, and I was pretty impressed on the whole. Once again, like the other anniversary books, I'll kind of go through each of them. First up, really kind of blew me away and sold me on the book. Well, even just from the beginning, we get a lot of like all-time great covers throughout this book. A bunch of classic ones featuring the Joker. Uh, this one really sticks out to me. Both of them. I have this one as a poster already, actually, but the other one looks great, just with the Batman, Robin, and Joker, and everything else in black. And then we get into a story by Scott Snyder, basically focusing on this therapist who treats victims of the Joker. Jock's the artist for the book, and I really liked it. We don't get a lot of time dealing with the aftermath of the Joker's victims, and I've always been curious about what happens after they're exposed to the Joker gas. And a lot of this is explored here, and Snyder really gets into his horror roots in this book and does a great job with it. It's a nice little, excellent horror short story that really does the Joker well, and I think nicely reflects Snyder's time with Batman. An easy and strong start to this series of books. Then we get something by James Tynion IV, kind of dealing with Punchline as a character. Earlier, one of our viewers was asking about what I thought of Joker War and stuff. I really haven't been that into it. Even this book didn't leave me that into it, but I liked Punchline's character, and she's introduced well in this story. And that whole take on it was quite interesting. I still can't really say I care all that much about the Joker, but this little mini story introducing this character and her relationship to the Joker and how she sort of came to be, that was a lot of fun, and I quite enjoyed it on the whole. After that was a story called Kill the Batman by Gary Whitta and Greg Miller. It basically deals with the Joker killing the Batman and the public learning about the Joker, Bruce Wayne being Batman, and mourning him, and the Joker attending this memorial service, and ultimately coming to terms with Batman's death, realizing it's a mistake, and ending on a bit of a gag that made me laugh. It didn't surprise me too much that like Whitta and Miller were able to tell a good story, but Dan Mora and Ivan Placencia, who we already talked about today, for those of you that watched my death metal stream, he also was the colorist for this and the colorist for this little short story. The art's just amazing in this book. Like, looking at Alfred talking about things and kind of cutting around different characters and them talking about it. It's a lot of good writing in this particular short story, but excellent artwork to really back it up too. And it's all just existing in what's very easily like an alternate universe and take on Batman, but it's just so well done. And for something that ends on a joke, which is appropriate for a series of stories featuring the Joker, it was great. Really not what I expected, but a bit of a sincere look at the nature of Batman and the Joker's relationship without being overblown and overweight. Just having a little bit of fun with it and telling a funny story, which was great. So already we kind of have a variety of like a really dark and creepy story and then a really funny story. And so far, I'm pretty sold on this. Like, yes, the Joker's an overplayed character and is featured so heavily in these things, but on the whole, he's a fun character who works more than he doesn't. After that, we had another one that made me sad because it's called Introducing the Dove Corps by Danny O'Neill, and then Jose Luis Garcia Lopez as the artist. And like a bunch of other people working on this book, but Danny O'Neill's the big standout in that, and he tells a classic story. There's a certain bittersweet quality to that because he passed away recently, and these are like the last scraps of story we're ever going to get from a guy who had a big effect on the history of comic books and stuff. I talked a lot about that in the Green Lantern 80th anniversary special, which felt even more so because that came out after this one, so therefore it's even more significant, and O'Neill spent a lot of time with Green Lantern. But this is a fun story where the Joker's bored with Gotham and upset with it, so he goes to join up with a Peace Corps, basically, and learns that they don't kill people, and he's like, oh, okay. So he actually agrees to use non-lethal force to save a bunch of hostages, and then he murders them all, because, you know, he's the Joker. And it's a very simple story, but a fun one. And I don't know, the way they handle him, like, joining up with this group, and we're like, oh, we don't kill anybody, and he's like, okay with that, was funny and interesting. And on the whole, it was a fun story. Then we get, and this is just a single page, but I want to talk about it. It's just a little piece of art by Stejepan Sejic. I don't really know how to say that name, but he's the writer and artist of the Harley Black Label graphic novel, which I really loved, and he's working on another Harley Quinn and book of some kind, and I'm enjoying that. Well, I haven't checked it out yet, but I really want to, actually. And he just got to do a page in here, and it's great. There's a lot of little featured artwork. I'll point out another one when we get to it. And then we get one by another story by Peter J. Tomasi and Simone Bianchi doing the art and coloring, and Rob Lee doing the lettering, all of whom really stand out. And they tell this really cool story about the Joker being all inside Batman's head, which they represent literally on this last page here. But it's got that classic kind of Joker graphic novel lettering to it, where it's all crooked and intense looking. And the whole thing's kind of written in almost a prose, like it's poetic in how it's written. And that and the very imaginative and kind of all over the place artwork, but not disorganized. It's telling a story. It's just a very surreal story that represents kind of the more extreme end of Joker. And it's great. We get a huge variety of different flavors of Joker. Like the Catwoman 80th anniversary book, we get a sense of him in his olden days, kind of being a classic villain when O'Neill was writing him. Snyder and Tomasi did a good job with giving the more horror and creepy elements of the Joker some time in the light. What's his face? Tinian the Fourth does his thing for present day Joker and what's going on with the Joker Wars. It's a good variety, one I don't object to. And then Paul Dini comes and kind of knocks it out of the park with his story, featuring the only element of Harley Quinn throughout this entire book, and I think it's just perfect. Because she's basically telling Ivy, like, we only find this out at the end of the story, but I'll just kind of give it away. We only really find out at the end that Ivy, she's telling Ivy about these recurring dreams that the Joker would have when he and Harley were together. About, like, him being tormented by the Batman, and Batman laughing at the Joker during the Joker's execution. It's all pretty interesting and well handled and really dark for what I normally would expect out of Paul Dini, but well done on the whole. Especially the artwork, which is just really creative. It features the guy who did the Batman Shadow crossover thing that we covered, and he just does an excellent job. Or is this Shadow Batman? It's one of those two artists. Riley Rossmo, who I think did both of those, actually. Stories, and then Placencia also does the coloring in this book, and it's great, or in this story, and it's great. But the whole crux of the story is Harley says that these dreams were why she ultimately left the Joker. And it's because she was never part of these dreams. And I found that so indicative, because not just of the story and what it was saying about their relationship, but of the Joker. In 100 pages, this is the only real reference to Harley Quinn in the entire book, and I think that's perfect, because a Harley anniversary book will feature the Joker heavily and talk about him a lot and deal with him quite a bit, and her relationship to the Joker is going to be a huge part of her character. But to the Joker, she's just a blip on his radar, another victim that happened to stick around longer than the others. And I find that so interesting, because that means that we have the Joker basically like it's indicative of their relationship, because the Joker never really cared about Harley, and to Harley there was a time where he was the world to her and her identity was defined by her. And I say all that just because there's an interpretation one could make where it's at the disservice of her character, and it's like, oh, she's so obsessed with the Joker and he doesn't care about her at all, like she's barely a part of this anniversary book. But I disagree. I think that speaks to what the Joker is and the kind of monster that he is, and the abuse that Harley suffered, and how little of her how little she means to him. And that to me was pretty well done and great. And for Paul Dini, who's like a huge part of her creation and stuff, to be able to write that story, and the only story to feature Harley Quinn like at all, is great. Then Tom Taylor writes a story called Birthday Bugs, and it's so good. Eduardo Riso does the artwork, and it's kind of really interesting. I've seen his art before. It's pretty cool, but it's all about the Joker basically coming to confront one of his employees who didn't show up for a job, and finding this kid who's like pulling apart bugs, and basically he comes across a little sociopath kid and feels like really bad for him because it's his birthday and no one came to his party, not even his own dad, who's just out doing something. So the Joker like forcibly puts this birthday party together and does all this, Jokery things, but it's just great. It's not the Joker being sappy, but taking a liking to just the right sort of kid that makes sense for the Joker's character. And it's so funny and well done. And it left me thinking, like, honestly, out of DC's main on-hand talents, Tom Taylor's really just one of the best. I went into the story thinking, well, I bet Taylor's going to have some interesting take on the Joker that's just going to be different from everything else, or just some interesting idea and hook that's going to make his story really interesting, and that's exactly what he did. And he's so good at that, and so consistently good, but I think it's easy to overlook him because he spends a lot of time in his own little universe within DC continuity, either in Injustice or nowadays DC's, and because of that, he's not as heavily associated with mainstream DC, but he's so good at this stuff. Give him any old character, and he just seems to nail it. I haven't really seen Tom Taylor spend a lot of time with the Joker because he got killed off in Injustice early on. That's like a crux of the story there, and haven't really seen him dealt with much elsewhere, and it was so well done. After that is a story called No Heroes by Eduardo Medeiros and Rafael Albuquerque, and the latter of whom also does the artwork. It's great. Kind of deals with this guy who kills one of the Joker's men during a bank robbery, and the Joker sort of is deciding what to do with the dude. The artwork's amazing. I know these guys from like other stuff, and they're good comic book makers, and it was cool to see them have a chance with the Joker. They did a great job. After that was Tom King's story, I believe, as I'm flipping through it. Oh no, Tony S. Daniel did Penance. What was Tom King's thing? I swear he's on this. Oh, he's not. I could have sworn I saw his name. Well, that's fine with me. Tony S. Daniel does the artwork and writing for this story. I really didn't expect the world out of this one because he did a lot of some of the weaker elements of New 52 era Detective Comics, but this was a fun story. It's all about this crook that accidentally killed one of the Joker's men again, actually, and made off with this little medallion thing, and the Joker ultimately confronts him on it. Daniels does a good work with his art. I never hated his time with Detective Comics, and on the whole, it was pretty good. And then last was Joker 2 Fell into the Hornet's Nest by Brian Azzarello and Lee Barameo. Barameo's art is amazing, really well done, kind of an interesting mix of cartoony and detailed realistic, and a lot of fun artwork that plays up the fact that Jack Nicholson played the Joker, and it's kind of telling a parody of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But this is by far the weakest story, and I have had mixed feelings about Azzarello in the past. I don't hate him as much as some other critics and fans do, but this story was weak as hell, and I didn't really like it very much. But, one weak story out of 100 pages of awesomeness, and even this one having really strong artwork, really didn't bother me. And it even features at the beginning art by Fiona Staples from Saga, and her cover's amazing, and my favorite single page in this entire book. So on the whole, Joker 80th Anniversary was another solid addition to DC's 80th Anniversary books that they've been doing so far. I would totally recommend it. My comic book store had quite a few issues left, so next time you happen to be near a comic book store, see if you can get your own copy. There's a bajillion different variant covers. Mine was by David Finch. I always like good artwork by David Finch. I think he did a great job with this one. And it's called the 50s style variant cover, which I think it's very modern-y, I'd say, but it does evoke that costuming and stuff, and even him sitting on a big old pile of money instead of burning it. So there you go. Oh yeah, and even the back, which I just happened to hold it that way and noticed, was a nice little image. On the whole, great book overall. What time are we at? So 5:45. Yeah, we should be, should be able to maybe fit one, maybe two more reviews in today, so we'll kind of just keep these going. Feel free to leave a comment about what you think about staggering out these reviews like this out of what I get in a week. I think there's a lot of value in it. It's certainly a lot easier for me to handle and kind of push these out, and they're kind of fun to do this way. They're all just sort of individualized. We can look at things a certain manner because of that. So thanks for watching, and next up, we're going to be talking about Justice League number 49. I'm pretty much doing these in random order, but we're hitting a lot of our DC ones early. I've read this one. It's pretty interesting, and it'll be good to talk about this. We've already reviewed the last several issues of Justice League series so far, and they remain a nice palate cleanser from some of the more epic and involved stuff going on in other elements of DC canon. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you guys next time here on Comic Island.